So, if you walk into, almost any yoga studio in the world right now, and you just unroll your mat and ask the instructor, hey, what color is the root chakra? I mean, they're going to tell you it's red.
Oh, 100%.
Right. Because it's literally printed in every modern textbook. It's painted on the studio walls, and it's taught in week 1 of basically any energy work class you could ever take.
Yeah, it's foundational.
Exactly. But for today's deep dive, we're actually looking at a master practitioner, someone with like 50 years of hands-on experience, who says that this entire multi-million-dollar mainstream yoga industry has that foundational fact completely backward.
Which is wild.
Right. He says the root chakra is actually yellow.
And, I mean, we really have to pause on that because that is a massive paradigm shift.
Yeah.
We were talking about a fundamental building block of spiritual anatomy. It would be kind of like, I don't know, a seasoned cardiologist tapping a microphone at a conference and announcing that the human heart actually has 5 chambers, not 4.
Oh, yeah.
And that every single medical textbook published in the last century just, copied a typo.
That's a great way to put it. And so, welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Our mission today is to unpack this incredibly provocative claim from a practitioner known as Osman, or he goes by the blind Muslim yogi.
Right.
And we are going to explore how exactly he arrived at this conclusion, why some ancient, deeply hidden texts actually back him up, and what it means for all of us, for you listening right now, when accepted, universally repeated facts just turn out to be completely wrong.
Yeah, because this really requires us to look very closely at the tension between two things, right? On one hand, you have direct, lived, practical experience. And on the other, you have this blind obedience to ancient and possibly, altered written traditions. Because Osman is not just some guy who took a weekend mindfulness retreat and decided to, rebrand the chakras to stand out on social media.
No, not at all. And we really have to establish who we are dealing with here before we get into the actual mechanics of his claim. Because Osman has been studying these art forms since he was, I think, 10 years old.
10, yeah.
10. He has been practicing for 50 years. Teaching for 46 years. And the crazy part is he has taught entirely for free for that entire nearly 5-decade span.
Which is unheard of today.
Literally unheard of. And he's reached students in over 100 countries.
Yeah, and his background is where things get highly, highly complex. Yeah. Because he operates as a master-level bioenergy healer.
Right.
And his specific claim, and this is a big one, is that he specializes in telepathic healing. Primarily dealing with critical care, terminal illnesses, stage 4 cancers, things like that.
Wow.
He says he usually steps in only after modern medical science has just completely exhausted all its options, when patients are in the ICU with literally days to live.
Okay, and the numbers he presents in his materials, they're just huge. He states he has a success rate of over 90% with these critical care cases.
Yeah.
Which is, 90%. And he also claims that out of the 18,000 known illnesses out there, conventional medicine can really only resolve about 4,000 of them.
Right, whereas his methods can address 16,000.
Yeah. Now, I gotta say, as someone who tries to stay firmly grounded in reality, my first instinct whenever I hear a quote-unquote 90% success rate on terminal illness is to, ask for the clinical charts.
Of course.
Because those are incredibly bold medical claims that obviously we cannot verify clinically here today.
No, we can't. And that skepticism is entirely warranted. Honestly, it's the appropriate lens to bring to this kind of deep dive.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the function of those claims in Osman's specific framework. Yeah. He isn't putting those numbers out there to, sell a pharmaceutical drug or something.
Right. He's not selling anything.
Exactly. He is using them to establish his functional authority. He's essentially saying, look at the practical, undeniable results of my energy work. I am operating in the field, dealing with literal life and death energy transfers. When you are theoretically manipulating the subtle energy of the body, which in his framework involves shifting frequencies to repair cellular damage telepathically.
Almost like quantum entanglement, right?
Exactly, like quantum entanglement, where 2 particles affect each other across a vast distance. When you do that, you develop a highly refined sensitivity to that energy.
So he's basically using his track record as a healer to say, hey, my eyes are open. I see the energetic architecture of the body clearly because I work down in the engine room every single day.
Right. He's got his hands dirty.
Which brings us to the core discrepancy of this whole thing. How exactly did he arrive at the color yellow for the root chakra, the Muladhara?
Right.
Walk me through the actual mechanics of his practice here, because it is not what people typically picture when they think of sitting down to meditate.
No, it's fundamentally different. I mean, if you think about most mainstream meditations, what do they tell you to do?
Close your eyes and focus on your breath.
Exactly. Close your eyes, look inward, quiet your mind. But Osman utilizes a highly specific open-eye meditation technique.
Okay.
He instructs the practitioner to take a visual anchor. It could
Okay.
be, just a piece of paper with a distinct red or black dot on it.
Hmm.
Or maybe a vase or a flower.
Right.
But it has to be something substantial enough that your eyes won't suffer from sensory fatigue, which would make the object temporarily disappear from your vision.
Wait, so you literally just stare at it?
You stare fixedly at that single point.
Yeah.
No moving the eyes left or right. I mean, you blink when it's physiologically necessary, obviously.
So you're not trying to dry your eyes out.
Right, but you maintain this one-pointed gaze. You breathe in strictly through your nose. You keep your physical body completely relaxed, and you hold that unbroken visual concentration.
Okay, I want to pause on the why of that for a second.
Mm.
What is the actual physiological mechanism there? Because, I mean, staring at a dot sounds really simple, but it has to be doing something very specific to the brain to trigger this kind of profound spiritual experience, right?
Oh, it absolutely does. It's fascinating. When you lock your visual cortex onto a single, unbroken external point like that, you are essentially giving a massive, demanding job to a very specific part of your brain.
Okay.
And by doing this, you start to suppress what neuroscientists call the default mode network.
Oh, right, the default mode network.
Yeah, that is the part of your brain responsible for your wandering thoughts, your ego, your anxieties about the future, your regrets about the past.
All the chatter.
Exactly. All the noise. And instead of trying to silence your thoughts by fighting them, which, let's be real, rarely ever works.
Yeah, it's like telling someone not to think of a pink elephant.
Precisely.
Yeah.
This open-eye technique actually starves the default mode network of processing power. It redirects all that bandwidth to the visual cortex.
Wow, so you are basically hacking the brain's hardware to force the software to just quiet down.
That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And in Osman's framework, once that mental chatter is suppressed physiologically, it creates this very safe environment to unblock the chakras.
Right.
It allows the kundalini, and then we should define kundalini here, not as some kind of vague magic, but as a dormant biological and energetic potential located at the base of the spine.
Right, it's an actual bioenergetic mechanism.
Exactly. So this practice allows that energy to awaken at what he calls a mind level. And when that happens, it alters your sensory perception entirely.
And that, listeners, is exactly what happened to Osman when he was about 32 years old.
Yeah.
He was doing this very specific open-eye practice, staring at his visual anchor, and he didn't just have a vague feeling of peace or anything. He had a profound visual sensory shift.
It was dramatic.
He says it was literally like someone flipped the switch and just turned on a colored globe inside the room. He described feeling physically immersed in a type of plasma. He entered this intense flow state where the two-dimensional picture he was staring at suddenly took on a vivid three-dimensional depth.
And the color of that plasma, the color that flooded his awakened vision as he connected with the root chakra, was vibrant yellow.
Not red, yellow. But here is the detail that completely blew my mind when I was going through his notes for this deep dive.
Yeah.
He thought that yellow was the final answer, right? Like, okay, I see the root chakra, it's yellow, done. But as he continued this exact same practice over the following weeks and months, the energy kept rising up his spine, and the color in his vision actually transitioned.
It shifted.
It shifted. It went from that initial yellow, and then it deepened into this rich golden mustard color. And then only after prolonged, really advanced progression did the color finally turn red.
Wow.
So it was yellow, then golden, then red.
Which completely shatters the static diagrams we see in every textbook today.
Wait, I have to jump in here because something just clicked for me.
Go for it.
If the color turns red at the very end of his progression through that specific chakra, does that mean the ancient texts aren't actually wrong? They just recorded the finish line.
Oh, wow.
Right. What if modern gurus are trying to start a marathon at mile 26? They are telling beginners to sit down and focus on red, but red is the terminal state of that specific energetic center. It's not the baseline.
That is a brilliant deduction.
Yeah.
Seriously, that bridges the gap between just rote memorization and profound lived insight. It suggests the textbooks are offering a snapshot of a completed process, but they're selling it as the starting point.
It honestly reminds me of Imagine a medical student, right?
Okay.
They spend 4 years memorizing this pristine, perfect, color-coded anatomy textbook. They know exactly where the liver is supposed to be, perfectly drawn in bright purple ink.
Right.
But then they finally get into an actual operating room, and a veteran surgeon opens up a living, breathing patient, and the surgeon points down and says, "Look, the textbook printed this organ on the wrong side, and it's definitely not purple."
Yep.
Osman is that veteran surgeon here. He is looking at the actual living energy, the live pulse of the body, and realizing the map they've been using is entirely misleading.
I will actually take that analogy a step further.
Oh, please do.
The textbook was drawn by studying a static, lifeless cadaver,
Oh, man.
right? But Osman is observing the dynamic, shifting reality of a live pulse. And because his direct, vivid experience so sharply contradicted the static cadaver of mainstream teachings, it drove him to search for validation.
He had to know he wasn't crazy.
Exactly. He needed to know if he was the only practitioner on Earth experiencing this specific sequence.
And it turns out he wasn't. But he had to dig incredibly deep to find the corroboration for this.
He really did. He turned to the Upanishads.
Hmm.
And for context, for anyone who might not know, the Upanishads are these ancient Sanskrit texts that form the philosophical foundation of many Eastern spiritual traditions.
Right.
And they were originally oral traditions. They were passed down from ancient rishis or seers thousands and thousands of years ago,
Wow.
long before they were ever actually committed to writing.
And anytime you have thousands of years of oral tradition followed by thousands of years of written translation, you are going to get the ultimate game of historical telephone.
Inevitably. I mean, texts get translated, they get retranslated, they get politically altered, and they get interpolated.
What's that mean exactly in this context?
An interpolation is basically when a later scribe inserts their own commentary, or maybe corrects what they think is an error, and in doing so, they permanently alter the original text for all future generations.
Wow. So they just rewrite history without telling anyone.
Basically.
Yeah.
And while the vast majority of modern translations of these texts do claim the root chakra is red, Osman actually found a minority lineage.
Okay.
Certain authentic, deeply buried translations actually state explicitly that the root chakra is yellow, and the third chakra, the Manipura, is red.
Okay, so the historical precedent is absolutely there. It just got buried by the more popular and possibly interpolated translations.
Exactly.
But he also found modern verification, which is where this story takes a really wild turn.
It really does.
Osman points to a video released in the spring of 2023 by the Blossom Foundation, and it features a highly respected contemporary teacher of yoga sciences and Vedic literature named Sri M.
Yeah, and Sri M is a formidable figure in these circles, like deeply respected.
Oh, for sure. So in this particular video, they are discussing Kriya Yoga, and Sri M confirms Osman's exact lived experience.
It's just out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. He stated plainly that the first chakra is yellow and the third is red. And when his own audience of students pushed back, literally saying to him, "Wait, our other teachers always told us it was red," Sri M did not back down.
He stood his ground.
He did. He cited a specific traditional text, which Osman recalls as relating to the Naga Kundalini, to substantiate the yellow root chakra.
Right.
Okay, but to establish Sri M's credibility for you listening, Osman shares this anecdote about him, and I just have to bring it up because it is fascinating.
A podcast story.
Yes, the podcast story. Sri M was a guest on this massive podcast called Beer Biceps. It's also known as The Ranveer Show.
Right.
The host has something like 8.5 million subscribers. It is a very mainstream, highly produced show.
Huge audience.
And right in the middle of this interview, on camera, Sri M materializes a round Rudraksha bead out of thin air right into the palm of his hand.
Just a physical, tangible object seemingly pulled from nowhere.
Right, a solid seed bead. And he just hands it to the host, who is obviously completely speechless.
I mean, I would be too.
Yeah. So Sri M asks him, "Hey, do you want to wear it as a necklace?" And the host is so stunned he can barely even form an answer, so Sri M has to ask him a couple of times, "Do you want me to make a hole in it for you?"
Mm-hmm.
The host finally nods. So Sri M takes this solid, hard seed bead, and without a drill, without any tools whatsoever, he just blows a breath through it.
Wow.
And a perfect hole appears right through the center of the bead so it can be strung on a thread.
Now, we have to contextualize this.
Yeah.
Because in the yogic and Vedic traditions, these kinds of miracles, these materializations are known as siddhis.
Okay, and I gotta be honest. As someone who watches a lot of stage magic on YouTube, my brain instantly wants to look for the sleight of hand.
Of course. The hidden pocket.
Right, the pre-drilled bead palmed in his hand. But whether it is literal reality-bending magic or just an incredible executed parlor trick, what is the function of doing that on a podcast with millions of listeners? Like, why does Osman care so much about this bead story?
Well, he cares because of what CDs represent in the literature.
Yeah.
Sri M himself states on that very podcast that these miracles are technically nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, he says anyone can learn to do them with certain practices, and they absolutely should not be the goal of a spiritual seeker. They are considered mere side effects.
Oh, I see. It's like getting calluses from lifting weights.
That's a good analogy.
The callus isn't the goal, right? The muscle is. The callus just proves that you've been in the gym putting in the work.
Exactly. A CD is basically a byproduct of a highly regulated nervous system and a drastically elevated energy frequency. They serve as verification.
Verification.
Right. Osman is pointing to this event to say, look, Sri M is not just a librarian reciting ancient books. He has access to profound functional capability.
He's been in the gym.
He's been in the gym. And that lends immense experiential weight to Sri M's validation of the yellow chakra.
But, I mean, this creates a massive narrative collision for us.
It does.
If we trust the sight of someone who can allegedly manipulate physical matter on a podcast, and we trust the 50 years of open-eye visual evidence from Osman, what does it mean when they look at our most popular mainstream yoga teachers and say, you guys are entirely blind?
Yeah. It leads to a deeply, deeply uncomfortable implication about the entire modern wellness industry.
For sure.
Osman's central critique is piercing. If mainstream teachers, famous authors, and major gurus have this one foundational baseline fact completely wrong, how many other errors have sneaked into the curriculum?
Oh, he does not hold back on this.
Not at all.
He expresses intense frustration with major YouTube gurus who have millions of followers. You know the ones.
Yeah.
These are people who run massive schools, they charge exorbitant fees for lessons, and they offer these expensive, exclusive initiations. And according to Osman, they don't even know the correct color of the very first energetic center they are literally charging people to unlock.
Yeah.
He literally calls it a massive scam on the rise.
He does. And he uses the term woke society in his critique, but he is using it in its most literal, original sense here.
What do you mean?
Well, he is pleading for a spiritually discerning community, a community that keeps an analytical mind a woke or awakened mind and refuses to be misled by charismatic figures who claim high-level authority but don't have the basic, verified experiential knowledge to back it up.
Which is a very heavy accusation to throw around.
Absolutely.
And naturally, you know, when you call out a multi-million-dollar industry and you claim to heal terminal cancer telepathically, and you say you see glowing plasma with your eyes open, you're going to invite critics who simply label you crazy.
That's inevitable.
Right. They will say it's just a hallucination or a symptom of psychosis.
And Osman actually anticipates that exact criticism. Yeah, and his preemptive defense is deeply rooted in the physiology of his practice. He asserts that while physical brain deformations are a reality of human biology, like someone can be born with a structural issue, or they can develop age-related dementia.
Right, hardware problems.
Exactly. He claims that advanced practitioners of pranayama are completely immune to psychological illnesses.
And pranayama being advanced yogic breathwork, for those listening.
Correct. And we really need to look at the mechanism of why he claims this. He states that advanced pranayama protects against 90% of physical illnesses, but it protects against 100% of psychological illnesses, like schizophrenia or clinical psychosis.
100%.
100%. The theory is that this intense, sustained breathwork fundamentally alters your brain chemistry. It regulates the amygdala, it hyperoxygenates the bloodstream, and it clears the neurological pathways so effectively that the chemical imbalances required to produce a delusion or a hallucination simply cannot form.
Wow. So he's basically saying, by the very biological rules of the breathwork I have done every day for 50 years, my mind is functionally incapable of hallucinating. Therefore, my vision of the yellow chakra is an objective, verified experience.
That is his stance, yes.
But I want to throw a question back to you on this.
Okay.
Is it fair for Osman to label the mainstream industry a scam? Because, you know, a scam usually implies malicious intent, like people knowingly selling you a lie to steal your money.
Right.
Could this just be systemic ignorance, like a multi-generational game of historical telephone where the original message just naturally got lost over thousands of years?
Honestly, that is the ultimate friction point of this entire topic. Because if the map was drawn incorrectly by some random interpolator 1,000 years ago, the guru selling you that map today might genuinely, passionately believe it's perfectly accurate.
Because it's what they were taught.
Exactly. They haven't done the arduous open-eye meditation to see the territory for themselves, so they just teach what they were told by their teacher. It is systemic ignorance functioning as a commercial enterprise.
They are selling a cadaver's map, thinking it maps a living pulse.
That's exactly it.
Which brings us to why this entire deep dive matters to you, the listener, right now.
Yeah, why should you care?
Right. Because even if you never plan to meditate a day in your life, even if you think the chakras are just a colorful metaphor, Osman's journey is an absolute masterclass in critical thinking and self-verification.
It really is.
Yeah.
It forces you to look at your own life, your own field of study or your own industry.
Mm-hmm.
How many standard operating procedures, how many accepted facts are you just blindly repeating because a textbook or a manager told you to?
Yeah.
Are you just a passive consumer of inherited assumptions? Or do you actually value the authority of direct, practical, rigorous observation?
Right. Don't just memorize the color-coded chart. Demand to see the engine run for yourself.
Absolutely.
And by the way, if you are curious to see the mechanics of Osman's methods and maybe test them out for yourself, he mentions that you can check out his free 5-minute yoga and meditation program over at yogawellness786.com.
And that's all free.
Totally free. It is very clear that his therapies are all natural and they are not a replacement for standard medical treatment. But he puts his protocols out there completely for free for anyone who's just willing to do the work.
It really is an invitation to transition from belief to direct knowledge.
It is. And that leaves us with one final kind of provocative thought to mull over before we go.
I like these.
We have spent this entire deep dive debating whether the mainstream ancient texts are right or if Osman and the hidden minority texts are right. But what if human biology and subtle energy are not static?
Wait, what if the architecture itself is changing?
Exactly. What if both the ancient texts and Osman are right? What if the colors of human consciousness aren't just this objective, permanent fact printed in the universe's textbook? What if they are a dynamic, evolving reflection of the practitioner's own unique era, their environment, and their specific frequency?
I love that. Maybe the map changes because the territory itself is alive.
Exactly. The territory is alive. Think about that the next time someone tells you exactly how things are universally supposed to be.
Great point.
Until next time.